Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Hello, podsters or podroonies, if you prefer. Welcome back to one of our spoiler specials. We haven't done one of these in a while since Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, so it's been a while. Lovely to have you back. And again, as always, if you haven't watched the movie, come back and listen to this, of course. And of course, we are talking about The Creator from Gareth Edwards. And I am joined by some special guests, Dustin and Jake from the Movie Bonerz podcast. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Good. Pretending that they haven't been podcasting for 2 hours already. Well done.
It's okay.
Yeah. And this film is a new film from Gareth Edwards. He previously did Monsters, the 2014 Godzilla remake, and of course Star Wars Rogue One, a big fan favorite for a lot of people, that movie, the first spin-off one. Yeah, and of course it's been well documented that in that movie specifically that, you know, Tony Gilroy kind of took over with the final act, and there's a lot of reshooting and re-editing, and a lot of people speculated that, you know, the end and maybe even the whole film wasn't necessarily Gareth Edwards' movie anymore, but that's still kind of up for debate. And that was maybe thought of a reason why we haven't seen another movie from Gareth Edwards in a while until this point. But I don't think that was actually the case. Listening to a lot of interviews, he was just biding his time or just writing, and this one came out of his head. So, guys, what did we make of The Creator?
I would say, first of all, I always appreciate original films, original ideas, especially sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi fan. And the intentionality of making a relatively low-budget movie, cutting costs everywhere you can, kind of getting back to basics, choosing to do it on a kind of a consumer-accessible camera, showing up-and-coming filmmakers what's possible with a camera you could rent for $100 a day and do the same thing. I like all of that stuff. I think that's noteworthy and laudable.
Yeah, we should say the budget of this film was only $80 million, but I don't think it's been a massive success at the box office either, which is a real shame for a sci-fi film that's based on nothing. It's all from Gareth Edwards' own imaginings, so it's a little disappointing from that point of view. But yeah, I really like the film. I think there are definitely issues for me, but visually it's really, really stunning. Yeah, I think it's a pretty decent sci-fi movie. What's your thoughts, Dustin?
I feel like I am in the minority with a lot of people right now who have seen it.
Okay.
I did not enjoy it
okay. Interesting.
all that much. I think it kind of gets lost in the visuals, which can happen when you have a heavy CGI film. The CGI looks incredible, so I have nothing against it. It looked really well done. It looks flawless. It's nice and smooth. But the story as a whole, I was just kind of not invested in it, which is kind of a bummer because I really like Isaiah Washington. I was looking forward to seeing it more so, and excited to watch him be in it. But yeah, this movie just did not connect with me. I felt like there was a lot of kind of cop-out decisions done just to force some emotion from the audience, and it just didn't happen for me.
I can agree to a certain extent, definitely, because I think this film is really trying to establish this kind of this world of the fact that humans and AI are on an equal playing field. There's an equality here in New Asia, and you have this mistake a supposed thing where the AI have like set off a nuclear blast in America, in LA, and America have completely banned AI, and New Asia is the only haven for AI. And when John David Washington like takes the weapon, as the Americans call it, but it's just like an AI kid, it's difficult to like find and feel the emotion between those two characters when you know that Alfie is not real. And I know they're trying very hard to like establish that actually when he had a previous relationship with Maya, Gemma Chan's character, that like before she died, she was working on this. She was the Nomada or whatever, and like this god figure for the AI, and she created this child that can grow somehow. And obviously that's a concept that's kind of very difficult to to work out in your head, I think, frankly. And the fact that she implants like, I don't know what the embryo would have looked like onto this robot's face, that's kind of a difficult thing to grapple with emotionally, to get this emotion right between John David Washington and Alfie. That's always a difficult one to achieve, and I'm not sure they really get there, really.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I didn't know if they were trying hard to have a biblical analogy, and that John David Washington's character was like a Joseph character who's...
See, I got that vibe too, and I was like, okay.
The stepdad of a baby created by this lady that is supposed to be the savior somewhat. I feel like they put way too much in the trailer, because I've seen it a bunch, and then you see the movie, and when they reveal that the weapon is a child, I'm like, hey, everybody knows that. We saw the trailer a dozen times, but they like dwell on it like it's a big reveal, and it's not.
Right.
Yeah. It's just well, to be fair, the reveal was the fact that he's really into anime. So
true.
Frankly,
it is true.
Yeah, I did feel emotionally manipulated by it. It's a weird thing that I think that you're supposed to feel like this point of the movie is that AI is... I've seen people posting online that this movie like cured their fear of AI and stuff like that. I felt the opposite, in that this child is not a child, and to put a child's face on it is just manipulating you into having like empathy for it. If it had a grown adult's face, you would not feel the same way about it.
What child was an asshole, you know? It would be like destroying the world.
Right. Because whoever is going to kill this AI child in the movie, like, obviously they're going to be the bad guy. They're going to be the person audiences will turn on. You're not going to kill the kid on camera.
No.
I thought that was probably my biggest cop-out issue with the movie. Like what Jake said, though, with people saying, oh, this cured my fear of AI. I don't necessarily fear AI, but I'm very much against it, as I've been pretty vocal about in some of our previous episodes. So watching a movie that is trying to get you, or to get me to sympathize with AI and side with AI was very like, I am not your target audience, folk. Like, nope.
The timing isn't great with what's going on in Hollywood with this film.
Right.
Yeah, that is a big part of it as well. I've seen people asking, is the movie written by AI? Are they trying to get us to accept them? It's like kind of District 9, where I think it uses aliens or uses AI to try to get you to be like, oh, being like racist against a machine is bad, but that machine is not the same as another person of another ethnicity or culture or whatever. It's really not the same.
Right. It's a machine.
So I felt like it was trying to like cure my bigotry towards AI, when in reality I'm much more like Ben Affleck in Batman versus Superman.
Right.
There's a 1% chance that it could destroy us. We have to take it as an absolute certainty.
And I'm with Jake on that one. I'm like, I genuinely don't understand the love and push for all this extra AI stuff, like AI writing scripts or music now, or people doing the deep fakes online on YouTube. I've never been a fan of that. I see with that is like this is such a dangerous territory to be going in. And then just for humor's sake, we grew up in the 90s, late 80s and the 90s. We grew up on stories flat out telling us, like, don't trust robots. They're going to try and kill the world.
Have you not seen Terminator? What's going on?
Right. I'm like, literally, we've had so many stories written about this. Like, come on.
Yeah, I feel like the film is trying really hard to like change people's perception of that type of story with AI. But I think my biggest problem with this film is kind of where all the reveals come, because I think there is some emotion there, I think, you know, towards the end when John David Washington is sacrificing himself to let Alfie exist.
Right.
Not live. So the story here is combining a lot of different like stories. You've got like the wolf and cub story, and obviously there's like the humanity versus AI war that we've seen in many sci-fi films other than like the Blade Runner movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they literally use the line more human than human.
Yeah. And most of these films are very like pro-humanity and very anti-AI, you know, and this film is kind of very anti-America as well, you know.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that we learn that Gemma Chan's character, has this embryo likeness implanted on Alfie, like the secret powerful AI that can grow, and John David Washington's character is the father. So there's a father-daughter relationship going on here, which is fascinating because this is what like your daughter would have looked like, but she's not human. So what is really frustrating about this film is that we learn this information far too late in the film for the emotions to really hit you hard, because we only really learn that like 30 minutes left of the film to go. So I'm like, well, why don't we learn that a lot sooner? I don't understand that, really.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Because we get a reveal that earlier on with his friend that, this thing can grow, but it's not like, it doesn't feel like a big dramatic moment either in that. And that there was another thing as well. There was a reveal. I can't remember it now, but it wasn't like a massive thing either. So I'm like, why are we leaving it so late? I don't understand that.
Yeah, he's been protecting this girl and taking care of her for so long already that he's going to care about her and continue to protect her and continue to, like, there are so many great movies of a hero character that sacrifices himself to save a child or whatever, that you don't have to have the reveal that it's kind of his daughter. That could have come earlier, and maybe the reason that he chose to actually help her instead of not, or something like that.
Yeah, that was it. Like, the other reveal is the fact that she can manipulate, you know, other tech with doing the hand gesture thing. But it doesn't feel like a big thing either for me, like a big dramatic moment for the characters.
It's like, oh, she's using the Force. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, why can't we have learned all that information in one kind of scene? So...
She's tapped into their Wi-Fi.
And then we can just concentrate on the character development for the rest of the movie. And then those emotions would have worked really hard. Would have hit really hard, you know.
Yeah.
But I think one like sci-fi concept which I quite liked, and there is kind of real science I think based on this, is when in the truck about halfway through the movie, like one of the fellow American soldiers dies, and Alison Janney's character, the main villain of the film, like gets this kind of device out and like scans the dead bloke's brain. People think that when you die, there's still some brain activity going on in your head. So then she kind of like sucks that information up and then implants it into a AI simulant, and then you have like the consciousness of that dead bloke into this AI guy.
Yeah. Replicating him.
So that was quite an interesting concept, and they used that obviously with Maya's character at the end, which was really interesting. And I don't think it works emotionally as well as John David Washington having to sacrifice himself, but it was a really interesting idea, I think.
Yeah, there's an interesting conflict between the villains being resistant to AI and technology, but also using a ton of technology and advanced intelligence. I don't know where the line is. And the movie doesn't really draw a line. It asks a lot of questions. It also shares a lot of things that other movies have brought up as far as AI personhood, and other movies have done that and probably asked the questions better. I didn't feel like the creator really answered a lot of them in a newer, compelling way.
What was really interesting for me is that this film really felt like the answers to what like Blade Runner 2049 was kind of asking, but like the questions that Blade Runner 2049 was asking are just more interesting than the answers that we get in this movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
frankly, because that in that film you have kind of spoilers a little bit for Blade Runner 2049. If you haven't seen this, skip on a little bit. But in that movie, like, they discover that a replicant has given birth to, a baby, which would completely fuck up the order of things in that world, that replicants would be able to rise up and that, humans and replicants would be on an equal playing field. Whereas in this film, they're kind of answering that question. Whereas you have AI simulants, as they call them, they are at an equal playing field with humans. But it's just not that interesting. That's the problem.
Yeah. I do the same where, like, when I'm watching a movie and I'm just not feeling it, I will stick through it unless it's, like, really, really shitty. I've only ever walked out of one movie and almost a second one. Yeah. But I always tell myself, like, they can redeem it with an ending, or there could be one scene that's going to save this movie for me. So I always stick it out for that. And I was waiting for that scene in The Creator for so long. And you brought up earlier, like, America's the big enemy again in this movie. And I had to roll my eyes when that came about, because Jake and I are very well known for not being fans of Avatar. Like, we're highly critical about that movie. And the scene where the big old tanks come crashing through the forest, shooting up all the AI and stuff, and having Allison Janney be the general, instantly my brain was like, oh God, it's gone Avatar. And the moment my brain made that connection, I was like, yeah, I'm done with this.
That was honestly the scene that I wrote it off to. I was like, the visuals are cool, the sci-fi is cool, the story is pretty weak. I didn't totally connect to the performances, but yeah, when it was like, this is Avatar and they're killing all of the non-humans, and I was like, no.
I was just like,
I'm not into it.
I felt the designs were pretty cool, though. It was very, Avatar-esque and
visually beautiful.
Gareth Edwards was saying it was kind of like early 90s Sony Walkman type designs he was going for. And it kind of reminded me a lot of like Jerry Anderson models as well, like in Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet type things. I was obsessed with those shows as a kid. So
yeah, I love that kind of like new, but also retro at the same time.
I think it was quite a clever idea where you can easily like identify like who are the simulants by like having a metal hole in their head. And I feel like, Gareth Edwards kind of approaches some of the initial shooting he did in treating the film like a documentary and just shot like normal people in Asia, and not a lot of like non-actors and the more human natured they looked, he decided to make them AI simulants, which I thought was a great way to like get across this equality feel this film has in New Asia between humans and AI. But, but that it just feels very kind of surface level though. And I feel like there's just not enough in the writing to really put that theme across. Really.
Yeah.
But what I must say, though, is there's great dog acting in this movie.
I forgot about the dog.
Where, like, a dog removes a grenade from where they're hiding and like, drops it right near a load of AI police officers and blows them up. And there's even, like, a classic, like, cartoon comedy here where you have, like, just a pair of robot legs just walking around.
Yeah.
I'm like... This is weird. This totally doesn't fit.
But, yeah, I forgot about that scene.
Very cartoony.
I do remember when the dog dropped the grenade, I was like, they're not going to kill the dog. This is not that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But when the legs are like bumping in each other and walking around, was this a last second decision to throw that into the cut? Because it felt just like... Like, why? I forgot about the dog.
Tone.
Yeah, I think Gareth Edwards was watching too many Looney Tunes or something. I'm not sure, but
Probably.
It felt like something out of the like Star Wars prequels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
They do look like the droid. Well, like you can see a lot of yeah.
Those droids, yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, guys.
Yeah.
The more I like have thought about this movie, and now we're talking about it, the more I'm like, I think I disliked it more than I initially thought.
Yeah.
And it sucks. I was super anticipating it. Just visually seeing that image of a person with a hole through their head, like you said, that sucks you in. It looks incredible and really makes you want to know what's going on. But yeah, I didn't think there was enough of a emotional human story to draw me into it.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest problems with the film is just how dumb the American soldiers are in this film. like the film is very anti-American, and for me, I'm still not sure whether it's actually intentional or not, but like how stupid they are. But like the American soldiers, when they're aborting the operation near the start to take out the weapon, as they call it at the beginning, and there's this woman like running back to their aircraft, and one of the police AI fires like something in the back to the backpack of this woman, like a grenade launcher. And she just runs into the aircraft. Like the grenade doesn't go off, and everyone sees this happen, and they just let her come in to the aircraft, and it doesn't explode. So surely they must know about their weapons that they use. Surely they have done some research, and even if they don't, that's a weird rocket launcher that doesn't explode.
Right.
Yeah.
So for them to let her on the ship was a strange one. But the most frustrating thing is that it happens again with Alison Janney's character, where Ken Watanabe fires one of these grapple grenades, and she just ignores it. I'm like, you've seen this happen already.
Like firsthand,
right.
You know what happens with this weapon.
And then she realizes before it's too late, you know, and even Alfie kind of tries to stop it, but then she's like, oh no, wait, no, and dead. I'm like, really, just take the fucking thing off. You've seen it before. Just really dumb. And even like they make the AI police officers and the humans that are there really dumb as well, because like in that scene near the start, before that woman gets onto the airship, she's hiding behind this little vehicle thing, and she like fires a load of rockets up in the air, and like all these AI guys are coming towards her, and I'm like, have you not seen what's gone up in the air? And they just stand still.
She wasn't being subtle about it,
waiting
guys.
to die.
Literally just watched them launch.
Yeah. So that was the first thing I noticed about this film. I'm just like, wow, these guys are dumb. It's really frustrating because like Gareth Edwards has this very like documentary-esque kind of style to the directing. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like a slick style. It's very much just kind of capturing it feels like he's just capturing the action when it happens with the camera. He happens to be there, that kind of style.
Yeah, realistic.
But surely that would have lended itself to like kind of hiding more of these kind of stupid things. So rather than having more conventional directing.
Yeah.
So I feel like he could have easily hidden it. I mean, or even just really just choreograph and stage this stuff a lot differently, frankly, because a lot of like the weapons and the action itself is really cool. So that was frustrating for sure.
I found myself shaking my head a lot during the movie, and then I just kept coming back to like, well, the visuals look cool. Like, I like the design of the simulants and all that, but there was too much in it to me that for being hyped up as like, this is 2023's huge original film, like this is going to be crazy good. You know, it's from Gareth Edwards. You know, people tend to love Rogue One. So there was a lot to it. And I just felt like every decision made on it was just lackluster. It was just like, you could have gone heavier with this. You could have, like what Jake brought up with, or both of y'all brought up, you know, have the reveal that the daughter is connected to him, but make it like an actual big deal. Don't wait until towards the end of the movie. There was just so many times in the film that I just was like, why did you choose to do that? That doesn't quite track for me. I was expecting something else to like get explained or talked about with his injuries. You know, I feel like there's a whole sub-story that they just blatantly left out that probably would be character building for this character so that we can connect with him better. We understand him better. You know, he's got robotic parts on his body. Why aren't we talking about that?
Yeah.
There's just so much that I was like,
yeah, I think it was just his own dependence on technology when he's trying to fight against technology and they're trying to highlight that conflict or something.
Yeah, there was a lot to it.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of take that stuff for granted a little bit of just like, kind of like, well, we're just going to focus on like the visual storytelling that this character is giving you, and that's all you're going to get. You're just going to make your own mind up of how he lost his arm and his leg or whatever. But yeah, I would have felt like if we had just a little bit of backstory about how he lost those limbs, it would have carried a lot more emotional weight. I don't know whether the film is definitely trying to give you this sense that Josh, you don't know whether Josh is with like the humans or is a sympathizer for AI like everyone in New Asia is. But I feel like that was never really in doubt that, like, you know, he was always going to be he was always going to protect Alfie. There was just no, for me, like throughout the film, there was just, before he even meets her, all those initial scenes that Jake meets Alfie, that there's no way he's going to kill her. Like, there's never going to be that unfortunate Mark Hamill moment in The Last Jedi. Where,
Jake's favorite movie.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough time to talk about all of that.
You know what the point I'm making though? There's no moment like that where whereas he's in doubt whether he should pull the trigger or not.
And the previews kind of spoiled that too. I had told Jake when we did a quick brief talk about it when we recorded our episode the last time, where I haven't really been excited to see it since they started advertising it. But I always want to give movies kind of a fair chance.
Yeah.
This one there was so much in it. The moment they showed the kid in the trailer, it was instant for me of, well, clearly he's not going to execute the weapon because the weapon's a child. They're not going to do that. He's going to sympathize. Like, obviously he's joining the AI in this war with Americans. So there's no conflict in this movie to me. There's nothing to make me question sides.
It's really easy to solve that because I'm like, well, why can't you just make John David Washington really, like, he has a real prejudice against AI to begin with?
It would be such an easy thing to include.
Yeah.
Just do that. And then, you know, and then he just, you know, works his way around that with having this relationship with Alfie. So
maybe that's why he lost his arm.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe Gareth Edwards was just like, well, that's just too stereotypical. But that's how a lot of movies work with story arcs.
But sometimes these plot points that are used in every story are there for a reason, because you kind of need it.
Yeah, because they're in the oldest stories ever made and they still work.
Did you guys notice the Dark Star joke though?
No.
Yeah.
I was the only one laughing in the cinema at this point, but Yeah, Dark Star is like one of the first, John Carpenter's first films, and that's all about like an AI bomb in this spaceship. Is basically like a student film, and that's where kind of like a lot of the humor comes from. And in this film, during like the bridge action scene, and they deploy like these AI bombs, and I think one of them says like, "Are you ready?" And one of the other bombs just shakes its head or just shakes itself, like saying, "No thanks." And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing."
That's fun.
And then the other bomb goes onto the bridge first. I just thought that was genius. In a film that doesn't really have that much humor. It is a very like blink and you'll miss it moment, but I was like, that is hilarious.
It's a good nod.
Good reference for him to make. Yeah, I didn't catch that. I was a little too busy being like, wow, R2-D2 has legs and can run.
Yeah, they did look kind of goofy as well.
Look at that trash can go.
Why has a bomb got arms?
Yeah. And I also couldn't help but think, like, why is no one like shooting the legs out of this stuff? You're just all aiming for the explosive part. Why don't you shoot the legs out so it'll just stop?
Yeah.
Like, keep your distance, guys.
It's pretty ineffective.
For AI, you really missed that one.
With the action scenes, Dustin, did they not work for you, or were they pretty compelling?
The action was like all right until my brain connected like the Avatar style, and then my brain was really like, oh joy,
okay, fair enough.
It's just another one of those. But the action was all right. Like, I didn't leave the movie thinking like that's the worst thing I've seen this year, because it's not, or like saying downright like I hated that movie. It's just it was just another movie to me that I was like, I will probably forget everything in this movie in a very short amount of time. Nothing was really memorable to me.
Yeah.
And I was bummed about that, because I really like when I can go to a movie that I already kind of don't have expectations for and then get blown away by it. I like being able to see that and then walk away being, happy and excited. I left the theater being like, okay, well, now it's time to run errands, so I'm going to go do that. And that's a bummer to me, because I like being happy and excited about films.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was kind of meh.
Yeah, I think it just borrowed a lot from other better movies or movies that did things better. Avatar, Apocalypse Now, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would say probably my favorite action scene is probably in Josh's friend's apartment. Like, that was pretty good. Like, it all kind of felt very loud and intense, and it all seemed to kind of be over pretty quickly. But I kind of like the intensity with that, and the way he kind of grabs one of the like stun gun things to take out a load at the end. That was pretty cool. I think John David Washington, I thought he was pretty good in the movie. I thought he was great with the emotional stuff near the end with Alfie before he dies. Gemma Chan, I thought, was great too. Not in it that much. I kind of wanted her in the film a lot more, but she definitely has a bigger impact than John David Washington from an emotional point of view at the start. She was a standout. But Alison Janney, really great, nice and cold for a villain. She was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought the acting wasn't, like, I enjoyed the performances. I like Washington, pretty much everything that he's done. I've really grown to be a fan of his. So a lot of his performance felt very familiar to me, not as a bad thing, but just like he kept me in the movie. So I give him a lot of credit for it. Gemma Chan was in and out of it super fast, and they never really did anything with the flashback stuff, which kind of bummed me out, because I like backstory. I like, some information on these characters that you want me to be emotionally attached to.
Other than they had a good time on the beach after they got married. So
I was expecting more from Ken Watanabe. Like, I really wanted more from him. I felt they kind of did him dirty.
Yeah.
Because he's a great actor.
Yeah, he was a little one note.
Yeah,
and you never really say that about him either. Like,
he's great, but they just didn't utilize him. And I hate it when a film has such great talent and then they don't utilize any of it. Let the dude do what he does.
Yeah, I definitely wanted more Ken Watanabe for sure.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts, Jake? What are you thinking for this film?
I would say I was incredibly anticipating it. I would say it didn't deliver on all the things I hoped it would do. So I think overall disappointing, not bad. And there are definitely positives to take from it, but average, I would say.
Yeah, I think for me, like, there's some really great ideas here. Like, some of them we've seen before, some of them we haven't. But I just feel like they don't establish, like, the politics of this world very well. They kind of brush that under the carpet at the start. And it feels kind of basic in that way of, like, how you're supposed to feel towards AI and Americans. So when you would think that would be more of a complex thing, but it doesn't feel that way. And again, I just think the plotting is just wrong here. Like, we needed to know more of like the big reveals a lot earlier in this movie than with 30 minutes to go, which is a real shame. So yeah, obviously I think we're all in agreement that it looks really great, but like that's only from a surface level point of view. But I think hopefully, you know, the fact that this film was so kind of cheap compared to something like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which cost $300 million. And frankly, the creator looks way better than that. So yeah, it's really interesting that hopefully Hollywood will take note and it can get its feet back on the ground kind of thing.
Hope so.
Dustin, final thoughts?
I want to see more from Gareth Edwards. I haven't been like completely turned off by his films. I thought Rogue One was entertaining and pretty cool. I kind of have a little bitterness towards it because it kind of kicked off all the Star Wars spinoff stuff that I'm just like, why are we still doing this? But that's for a different day. I want to see more from him. I like watching kind of younger filmmakers really develop and grow in this. But for this one being so long since his last project and him saying that he's been developing this and working on it for so long, I really find it hard to believe that this was the final product. And I really think for as great as the visuals are in it, I think it all got lost in those visuals that they just kind of were like, well, we'll sacrifice. They pulled basically a Michael Bay when it comes to making movies to me, where it's, we're going to focus on just showing off everything, but then we're completely going to abandon so many things that make movies and storytelling great. So I was
style over substance.
I this one's real low for me just because it should have blown me away. But you guys brought up, you know, comparing it with like Blade Runner 2049 and the original Blade Runner. Jake and I are huge fans of both of those movies.
Yeah.
And I feel those are perfect examples of how to challenge your audience, especially in terms of AI, on how do you view it? How do you feel about it? The fears and the comfort that can come with that stuff. And for this movie to kind of take note from some of that, I feel like it didn't actually take note from any of it. It's very disappointing for me.
Yeah. Right, I think we'll leave it there then. Thank you, Dustin and Jake from the Movie Bonerz. This is your opportunity to talk about your podcast and where we can find you.
Yeah, we have a movie podcast, Movie Bonerz with a Z, moviebonerz.com. And we're everywhere talking about everything, just stuff that we enjoy in a space where people can be very critical. Obviously, we're kind of critical here, but we try to focus on the good things that we love about things and even bad B movies that are so enjoyable.
Yes, I must catch up on those episodes with your B movie films. That does sound very cool.
That's such a great one to record and prep for.
Guys, it's time to say goodbye. It's goodbye from Jake.
Goodbye. Thanks a lot.
It's goodbye from Dustin.
Have a good one. Thank you, bud.
And it's goodbye from me. I am going to just watch Terminator 2 again, frankly. I think that's a good idea. All right. Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.